Hello everybody and welcome to another virtual flight training. My name is Roel and this is part 2 of my precision approach tutorial. In the first video we did an in-depth examination of the Jeppesen chart for the ILS 35 center approach in Graz, Austria. Today we're going to fly that approach using Microsoft's flight simulator. So if you haven't seen the first video, be sure to check that first so you know exactly what's going on. The link is down below. Just like in the previous video, I'm going to explain step by step what is happening. We start off with setting up the instrument using the approach chart, then I'm going to brief the approach and of course fly it. As a quick note, in this video I'm using multiple add-ons / mods for the sim. The aircraft is the DA40 NGX by Mr. TommyMXR, which improves the DA40 NG that comes with the game significantly. The G1000 is by Working Title, so it has a bit more functionality than the version that ships with the game itself. Both of these are free, but if you enjoy them, consider donating to the developers. And finally, the airport scenery is done by ORBX. I'll link everything in the description down below so you can check them out yourself. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, welcome to the cockpit. The sim is now paused so I can show you how to prepare the primary flight display, or PFD. That's this part right here. We won't be using the navigation display except for this part, which gives us the engine parameters. Normally you would set up the PFD and all your instruments before you start descending, and of course way before you are near the airport. For the sake of this video, I'll do it just before the Graz VOR, which we are now inbound on. So yeah, let's start with setting up the PFD. The first thing I'm gonna do is take a closer look and clean this whole thing up. There's so much going on that it's all kind of distracting. So I'm gonna get rid of this small little map here, and I also don't like the synthetic vision. It could be useful, but to me it's very distracting, and a lot of airplanes in real life don't have this feature, and if they have, you're not supposed to be super reliant on it. So we're just gonna turn it off for now. Okay, first we're gonna set up the communication. In the sim it's not that important, but let's put the tower frequency here on here anyway. That is 118.2. .2. Switch that to active. Then we do the nav frequencies. Okay, I say frequencies because we need multiple. Of course, I already put in the Graz VOR, which is 116.2. Of course, we're not gonna use the VOR for the glide slope and the localizer. For the actual approach, we need the localizer for that. Sorry. So let's tune that in. That one is 110.9. Oh, that's convenient. And we can switch, see if it's correct. Oscar Echo Golf, very good. Okay, switch back to Golf Romeo Zulu. The Graz VOR and the Oscar Echo Golf, the localizer, are not the only beacons we're going to use. There are also two NDBs. We're not gonna use them, but just tune them because they're on the chart anyway. So better just tune them in. You never know whenever you might need them. So we'll go to ADF. So let's do Graz is channel 290. And the other one, Gleigenberg, is 426. Leichenberg we do have to tune in, because that's gonna be our missed approach beacon. So we'll put that on active. Okay. Now the CDI. For tracking VORs, I prefer this one. For tracking this setup here, so it's just like an HSI, the steam gauge instrument, nothing too fancy. But for the ILS part, I prefer to use the ARC, which also gives us like a nice deviation indicator. But for now, just gonna stick with this one, and we'll change it later. I also want the wind information here. You can have option 1, which gives you components and vectors. This one just gives you direction with speed, and this one gives you direction with an arrow and the speed, and also the wind direction in degrees. So we're gonna use that, makes it easier. We also need a DME. So we have that here. We're now 2.5 nautical miles away from navigation 1 frequency, which is Golf Romeo Zulu. So we are 2.5 nautical miles away from the Graz VOR. Put on bearing. This blue arrow, it's quite difficult to see now. I'll just switch it up a bit. This blue arrow will point towards the beacon that is selected, so in this case the Graz VOR, and since we're on a track straight away, it's right in front of us. By the way, if you want to center everything, like the heading knob, you see the heading bug moving, just click it and just jump towards your the heading you're currently on. Same applies to the course, everything. Altitude. Altitude, we should be on 4,000. Should be set, because that's our holding altitude. Okay, so that's kind of the PFD set up. Altimeters, wind and everything. Weather, you can get ATIS. I didn't change anything about it, so the pressure is just going to be standard barometric pressure, nothing too fancy. Okay, so our heading is set to 346, which corresponds with the track, with the heading on the chart. After we're passing the VOR, that's when we're gonna make a right turn onto 166 degrees. We know that we are above the VOR when we're in the so-called cone of silence. The cone of silence is an area directly above a navigation beacon, like the VOR or an NDB, for example, where your radios don't pick up a reliable signal. In this case, when this happens, this middle part will partially disappear, and when it reappears, that's when we start our turn to the right towards 166 degrees. Like I've mentioned in my previous video, all turns during an instrument approach have to be made using rate 1 turns. Normally you have to calculate that. When you have a G1000, it's very easy. This little thing above here is our turn indicator, our rate of turn indicator, sorry. When we're turning, this is gonna fill up magenta, and when it hits this one, this line here, that's when we are at the rate 1 turn. So when we're turning, we're just gonna try and keep the magenta line on this little white line here. So yeah, that's about it. Let's just do a quick briefing before we unpause the sim. So yeah, okay. We're gonna make an ILS approach from runway 35 center into Graz, Austria. We have plate 11-1, effective date 28th of March. Tower frequency is 118.2, which is set. The localizer frequency is 110.9, which is also set. First going to use the Graz VOR, which is 116.2, which is also set. Our final approach course is 346 degrees, which is set here. Our minimum altitude, which we still have to set, is gonna be... Okay, our minimums, it states here we're in an Alpha class airplane, so our minimums is 1288 feet. That means we're gonna set this one to 1290. Always round up above, but since this is this altitude, 1288 feet, is the altitude you can't descend below unless you have visual contact with the runway. We're gonna set the minimums a bit higher, so just in case we don't see the runway, we have enough time to react and pull up and go around. In this case, I mean, it's a small airplane, 30 feet should be enough, so I'm gonna set it to 1320 feet. If you fly an airliner, maybe it's better to put in like 50 or 60 feet above, just to be sure. Okay, so minimum set, 1320 feet. Okay, so we start our approach above the Graz VOR at 4,000 feet. After passing the VOR, we'll make a right turn on heading 166 degrees and descend to 3,300 feet until we reach 7 nautical miles DME from the Graz VOR. When we hit that point, we make a right turn again and switch to the localizer, intercept the localizer, and when the glide slope indicator is parallel to this arrow, we start our descent. We'll do a full landing configuration, which means full flaps. When the glide slope is alive and we are established on the localizer, we'll start configuring the aircraft, which will be flaps landing. Our glide slope interception point is roughly around 6.8 DME from the Oscar Echo Golf localizer, and we will have a descent rate of about 450 to 480 feet per minute. In case of a go around, we will make go straight ahead, and at 3 nautical miles Oscar Echo Golf we turn right while climbing to 5,000 feet, directly heading to the Golf Bravo Golf NDB. This runway is equipped with an approach lighting system with flashing sequence 2, runway end identification lights, and puppy lights on the left side of the airport. Okay, briefing complete. So let's assume that we have clearance from ATC to start the approach, and then we can unpause the sim. That means we can turn on the landing lights and, in our case, the fuel pumps. So yeah, let's get started. Okay, let's go. We seem to have a bit of twitch to the right, so let's put on some fuel transfer so we get that fuel imbalance sorted out. Okay, we're almost over the VOR, so let's heading back to 166. There we go. Cone of silence. You see it disappeared. And now we can make a turn to the right. Climbing a lot. Trimming in this sim is really difficult if you don't have a force feedback stick, because you don't feel when you can't feel pressure, sadly. So I'm having a difficult time with it. I don't know, maybe others don't. In the real airplanes it's quite easy, thankfully, because of the feedback you get. So that's why my altitudes are not that great, sadly. Okay, almost at 166. There we go. Now I can start to descend towards 3,300s. Let's set it. Close to 3,300s. Make it a bit more easier to see. You don't need to look outside when you're doing an instrument approach. That's the whole point of it. I mean, this is not very interesting to look at, I know. But, if you're doing an instrument training, you'll be doing flight sim as well. Of course, in a nicer sim. When I did it, my instructor just turned the visibility outside from nothing, so I had a lot of screens providing me with no information whatsoever. It's all about the screens, all about the instruments. And of course, it's very nice when you execute a difficult procedure and then you look out and you see that you're perfectly aligned. That's a feeling of pride you get right there. Okay, so 4 nautical miles out, 3 more to go. Okay, I can make a right turn and switch to the localizer. .346 degrees on the heading bug. Slope is alive. That means that this green diamond is moving, and I'll switch to format, go to the arc. To intercept it. Start configuring, speed check, a bit too fast, flaps take off, check. Slower. Flaps full. Okay, before landing checklist. Flaps full. Fuel pump on, landing lights on. Before landing checklist complete. Okay. Almost 6.8. We can start our descent. There we go. So we can now start following the glide slope towards the runway. Try and stay a bit on the left side of the localizer because we're still too far to the right. Try and maintain around 80 knots. And now it's just a balancing act, trying to get everything in the middle and keep it that way while not decreasing your speed too much or let your rate of descent slip. But practice makes perfect. Okay, approaching minimums. So we can start looking outside if we can see the runway. Well, there it is. A bit high. Minimums. Decision is to continue. There we go. Raise the flaps. Turn off the pitot heat. And turn off the fuel pump. And there you go. That's how you fly in ILS. Practice it a lot. You'll get a lot better at it. I need to practice a lot more as well. But I hope everything is clear for you guys. Okay, well, that's about it. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Thank you.